TV. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here, Danielle. Thank you for providing this opportunity. It's so great.
Oh, so good. And yeah, we had to like hit record because you and I are talkers and we just started obsessing over
Great.
knitting. So so I'm so excited to share your business. Let's tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Great. So my business name is Dear Pru. I'm an entrepreneur, which means I design
Oh my
patterns.
God, I love that. Nitrapreneur. This is amazing.
I've coined a new term to
I love
encompass
it.
the wide range of things I do within the Yarniverse. So
Hmm.
I teach workshops, I design patterns, I coordinate tours for international designers to come and teach
Wow.
in Australia. I write for knitting publications. I've had a feature in a quite high profile knitting magazine this year. And yeah, a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, the teaching is the focus. That's where it started.
This
Yeah.
is this is so cool. So we just started geeking out because I started a knitting project on the weekend. And it's funny because my husband was like, I didn't know you knitted. And I feel like he was like, You're not a grandma. What is going on?
Oh, I hate that
I know.
stereotype. Oh man.
I know. So as I look at you, like young, gorgeous, very intelligent, how did you get into knitting? Because it does have that funny like stigma around it.
It's really terrible. And in fact, I just want to unpack that it's
Mm,
a bad thing to be a grandma, and it's not a bad to be an older woman
yes,
engaging in something. And I think, but it has a connotation when people say, "Oh, that's such a nana thing." They do it in a disparaging way, when in actual
totally.
fact, like we should embrace the fact that it has a female identity and it often links us to our matrilineage, heritage, and so forth. And so, yeah, I learned through a female neighbor, and then my grandma was the one that really kind of encouraged me through the ritual of tea and cake and getting out the English women's magazines, English Women's Weekly magazines at the end of the lunch every sort of fortnight or so, when we make the travel about an hour down to their house. And yeah, and it was through picking over the patterns and trial and error and so forth, I developed my own kind of skills. But then as an adult, through friendships, like finding my people that I could knit with, and matching that up with my knitting, my teaching
Mm.
um, profession. So I'd been a teacher for some years, and then I thought, oh, I could actually maybe share some of these knitting skills that are so much a part of my life with my community. And then it sort of kind of rolled away from there.
I love that so much because you're spot on. I was just thinking about, you talking about learning from your grandma and, passing on the skills. And I do wonder if why there's a bit of a stigma is because we see our grandparents do this art, this craft,
Mhm.
and it's not being passed down as much. So I don't know. I think I wonder then if maybe guys see the grandmas doing this activity and have that connotation, but I'm the same. So my grandma taught me lots of crafty things. So tapestry and
Yeah,
cross stitch and
yeah,
crochet and
yeah.
knitting. And then my mum taught me how to sew. And it's just like it's really interesting. I feel really grateful that I have, and look, I don't use the skills very much. And I think I was just saying earlier before we hit record was I'm getting back into it because I'm looking for an activity that is away from a screen, that is more meditative. I feel super grateful that those skills were passed down to me, and it's something that I can just go to and lean on as an activity. That's just, yeah, it's a really beautiful thing to do, I think.
I agree. And I think that's all the reasons you've named, Danielle, the reasons why this is a great time to be an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
because there is this real resurgence in interest in any kind of art or craft form,
Mm.
because people want to switch off from their screens. They want to reconnect with themselves and with others. They want to be creative or to express themselves creatively. And then also to find new people that also are drawn to these things. So, that connection, which is so much a part of being human, that we
Mm,
crave. And we can knit and we can chat at the same time. That's the other thing. Like it's not a very, it is a focused activity, but it's
mm.
the kind of activity where you can pause and chat, and you can work on something together and connect and vibe over it. So yeah, it's really positive.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, you said tea and cake, and I feel like I'm doing it wrong because I haven't got tea and cake in my life. So
Yeah, come on, you gotta have the snacks. There's a whole like genre out there of knitting photos with like coffee or tea and cake positioned,
Mm.
but also there's also people into other kind of snacks. So they'll go for like the Cheetos or the Doritos or whatever, but they'll use like tongs so they don't
Oh,
get
of course. So you don't get I would be the person that just gets, like, food all over my project.
yeah.
Oh my god, that is amazing. I love it, I love it. So you said you were in teaching before this, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so I'm a qualified teacher. I've been a teacher for 17 years. My areas of specialisation in the education field are learning design. So I was an education
Ooh,
consultant most recently. So
cool.
I taught teachers how to design their learning,
Mm.
and at a university level. I also taught history for a long time and English to high school students. Yeah, so that's still kind of ticking along. I still do a bit of consultancy in the education space, and I teach a bit of relief teaching because there's such a need for it. And I really love being in the classroom with the kids. And let's be honest, like while I'm making my business is in the black and I'm making quite a bit of cash with doing what I'm doing, it's still quite not quite enough for a living wage. So I'm just
Yep.
topping up, especially because I'm planning to go to the US in January
Ooh,
to attend
cool.
a knitting conference. So Vogue Knitting Live in New York, and I've also got a couple of engagements in Boston and San Francisco, Santa Rosa, just an hour out of San Francisco. So that trip is quite an investment. So I've had to kind of go back and do a bit of relief teaching, but that's okay. It's good. It's good to have that in your back pocket to be
You
able
know,
to
I
draw
think
on.
it's absolutely. I think that there's a really funny, again, I don't know why I keep using the word stigma today. It's going to be my word for the day. But it
Yeah.
is funny. I remember when I started, so Scrunch, my first business,
Mm.
I worked. So I had a corporate career
Mm.
before being a business owner, and I worked all the way up until we ended up raising capital for the business. And I kind of had to then go all in on it. But
Yeah.
I always say that to people, like if you have a job, don't quit. If you have an income coming in, build your business up because it's just not an overnight thing. Like
It's
building
not
businesses
overnight. Yeah,
is
but sometimes
long.
you get those moments where you have to make a call to back yourself
Yes.
or
Yes.
to dial it back. So I had that moment about 18 months ago. So I'd been doing my business as a side hustle for 4 years,
Mhm.
and kept getting these requests to go teach interstate, to do more workshops locally, to put out more designs. And I approached my boss and said, look, these things are happening for me, and I don't know how to juggle, all these things, and to meet my other, business,
Mm.
requirements in my substantive position. Anyway, they refused, the leadership team refused to give me part-time. And so it
Wow.
was a really tricky moment because I was working in education leadership, in which is like the highest level in my state. Um,
Mm.
and I was really loving it, but I just had to back myself, basically. I just had this
Yep.
moment where I'm like, I don't want to give up what I've worked towards. And I can see that if I keep going, that it's going to keep building. It was probably just a little bit early in the day to step away from full-time like work, or step away from a wage, but it was a really powerful moment to sort of say, you know what, I believe in myself, and I think there's a future in this for me, and I don't want to dial it back.
How did
And
that feel? How did it feel
yeah,
making the decision?
it actually was surprisingly easy. It was actually just hard kind of making some other people understand
Yeah.
including my husband.
Yep.
He was a bit like, "Can you take it back? can you just like go back to work
Oh,
so that I can
no.
take it back? And I'm like, nah, it's done. It's done. But yeah, so no, it felt really, really good. And I did have a lot of support too. I had mentors around me who were saying, yep, you're making the right decision. No, I know
Mhm.
it's going to be a bit scary, but also this is the right decision for you. And I had not heaps, but I had a little bit of cash in the bank. And having that kind of there's no parachute apart from being able to go back and do relief teaching,
Yeah.
meant that like I really had to work hard, like, and really
Yeah.
be focused about chasing those opportunities. And I think,
Mhm.
yeah, side hustles are awesome. Like I 100% agree with you. You don't have to like quit your job and start a new thing.
Yeah.
Side hustles are a great way to trial different ideas and practice and see what's possible and what the market's like, taste different options for yourself. But if you really want to grow a business fast, stepping away and giving it everything, it just, yeah, it really made a huge difference in the growth and the impact of my business. Yeah.
I love that. And I think I'm really interested. So when you did make the leap,
Mm.
did you know, and you said, there's nothing like not having a parachute. It does force you to hustle and focus. Did you notice a change in the business at that point?
100%, yeah. So I had to be a lot more, well, maybe not in the first few months. I was still kind of just working out what my week looked like, and
Mm.
how did I organize my time? Because I was basically doing everything sort of before work, after work, on the weekends. And now I
Oh, of
had like
course.
9 to 5 maybe, or did I have like a 6 till midnight now?
Yeah, yeah. 24 hours a day now. Great.
Yeah. So yeah, I really had to sort of think about the workflow and and also just sort of chasing opportunities and thinking about cash flow as well. So,
Mhm.
I'm not getting a wage fortnightly. So how am I gonna ensure that things are coming in, so that I can continue to sort of to live,
Yeah,
and to manage not just my input of cash, but my input and output of energy as well. So
yeah,
yeah, so that was, I think I've learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, but I've definitely developed a much better system. And, really even setting calendar reminders for doing my counts and things like that. Oh, and I joined a incubator. I forgot to mention that. That was a huge
oh,
thing.
cool.
Huge
Yeah.
thing. So I joined a incubator for creatives, and we focused on business skills for creatives, and that was a massive thing because it was a 3-month program called Vaulting Ambitions. We through so Libby and now what this is the name I can't remember.
All right, that's all right.
The Prompt Creative Centre in town in Adelaide. Um, uh, yeah, Libby and her husband, that Matt, they run it, and it was fantastic. It was the best thing for me. And I'd say finding that community who can support you aren't necessarily in your field, but
Mm,
you are able to help you develop skills and feel part of a business community, so that you can keep growing and keep connecting, and you're not just stuck in your home office.
no, and I do love that. And you've mentioned a couple of really interesting things there. So I want to go back to when you said, you kind of needed to organize your day and implement some systems and processes. You mentioned the calendar reminders, which I'm a huge, huge believer into. If it's not in my calendar, it literally doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm keen to know like how you went through that process. Was it complete trial and error, or have you got any like advice that you would give people when they're kind of looking at their week and going, how do I actually organize my time?
Well, it was something that I'd been doing when I was working in consultancy. Like
Mm,
because I would keep getting meeting requests, and I was like, well, when am I going to do the work that's coming out of this meeting?
yes.
So I would set time for each of the actions that needed to happen from that meeting. So I
Yeah.
developed that over a few years, but somehow I hadn't worked out that I could transfer that insight from my corporate world over into my life. And the other
Uh,
thing around having regular engagement with things that I learned from the teaching world as well, that you have, that's why you have maths 3 times a week, or you do English, and you have assignments. And even my study, I did a master's of educational leadership, and I had to balance that with full-time work. So I had this moment where I actually have some skills and some experiences that might be useful if I transfer them over here. So I
Mm,
s- but I had a few months there where I was just flying blind and didn't bother to sort of organize myself at all. So once put systems back in place and I'd use a color coding system, all my actions, all my activities were calendarized as events, and I also was checking and evaluating the color spread as well. So
mhm.
making sure that there was, because I wanted design and teaching to be at the core, but somehow I
Yeah.
had like a lot of blue, which is my email and accounts
Yeah.
code.
Yes.
So I'm like, well, I've got to somehow address this and bring it back into
Mm,
balance, so that my values as a business person are
yes.
reflected in how I spend my time as
Yeah.
well. Mm.
I really love that. So that's really hitting home for me right now because one of the things I've been thinking about as I reflect on 2023 is that I haven't done enough of what I want to do.
Mm.
So I have been complaining
Mm.
about doing too much of something that I don't like. But then
Yeah,
I'm going, well, I haven't calendarized space or created space for myself to do those things, which I believe are the things that I need to do to grow the business that I want to grow. So it
yeah.
is really interesting. You'd really have to be careful and intentional
Intentional.
about, yeah, about how you spend your
Yeah.
time and how you
Yeah.
map things out. I really love that.
Yeah, and it's data that you can then analyze and make different decisions about.
Mm,
So your action might be, oh, look, I'm spending a lot of time on my emails. Do I need to get a VA to like filter my emails? Or oh, I'm spending a lot of time on my marketing stuff and I'm not enjoying it. Should I
mm,
outsource this to someone else so that then I can open up space in my diary to do the things that I'm meant to be, that are core to my business, or the things that I
mm.
value and that drew me here in the first place. Mm.
I love that. That's amazing. Now, the other thing you just mentioned before was community. So
Yeah.
I'm really keen to understand how that has shifted things for you in business.
Yeah, so I think community is such an interesting concept. Some people link it with a geographical location, and that's it. You know, I live in X community, but the knitting community is kind of, for me, it's quite sort of diaphanous. Like it's a online community, it's a physical community that I engage with, you know, monthly or weekly when I teach classes or attend a social knitting group. It's also um, I think also goes across time. So I sort of see myself as connected to a knitting community, you know, across, you know, back to, like I said, the matrilineage sort of
Yeah.
concept. So
Yes.
yeah, it's a much sort of broader thing than just, you know, I go to this knitting group weekly or fortnightly, like some people
Yeah.
might kind of consider. And it has cultural, historical kind of context, and it has its own language. You know, it really is. It has its own kind of
Mm,
complete identity as a community. Like you would have the gaming community or the you know, the Italian community. It sort of has a similar kind of broadness to it. Mm.
I love that. And I think it's really interesting. You mentioned community around, knitting, obviously, and then the accelerator that you joined from a business point of view. I think that, we can be a part of a lot of different communities in our life, and they all bring us different value and sort of solve for different needs.
Yeah, totally. And I think the other sort of community would be, like, I live in the city of Charles Sturt, and there's a women in business networking, a regular event that occurs, as well as a general, everyone's invited business networking event that happens monthly usually. And no one there is, you know, knitting as far as I can tell. But it's such a great way to meet other people who perhaps are at the same point in their business, even if they're working in a completely different industry. Or you'll
Yes.
hear from someone talking about email marketing and they work in hospo, and you're kind of making connections and analyzing it from your own context, which, you know,
Mm.
and learning something new or a new approach that you hadn't considered might be relevant in your context. So that's been really positive too. It hasn't all been just within a bubble of the creative kind of
Mm.
businesses, but really, yeah, looking across and learning from, oh, that's what they do over in, events, or that's what they do over
Yeah.
there, and, and that's relevant to me in this way and that way, and take what you need from it.
I
Mm,
love that so much. There's so much to be learnt from other people with different perspectives. It's
mm.
really interesting. I really love that point, because sometimes when we just look to our, our kind of, I guess, related communities, or even our competitors, what are they
Yeah,
doing? I feel like
yeah,
that can really
exactly.
stifle our creativity.
Yes, because we're doing a one-to-one comparison when
Yes.
it's your competitors, and you're saying, I'm not doing that well enough, or I
Mm,
should be doing that, rather than going, what's the big picture here? Who are the people I'm trying to serve? What's
mm,
the problem I'm solving? What's my value? What's best practice when you're looking at customer user journeys, or what's best practice in communicating regularly with my customer? And it might not be evident within your niche. It might actually be in a completely different field that you start to understand something or learn something that's going to set you apart from your competitors, even though that wasn't your starting point.
Yeah, I love that. Has there been anything for you this year that has really stood out as being critical to your business growth? So, whether it be something that you've learned from one of these communities, or just a new experiment you've tried, a new marketing channel, anything that's helped you grow this year?
Oh, so much. So I really love Gary V.
Oh my God, me too. I know he's like polarizing, but I
Yeah,
love it.
but he's such a guru. And I
Yeah.
think so at sometimes it was things that I needed to hear to confirm I was on the right track
Mm,
with
yeah.
something. And other times it was a reminder to recalibrate where I needed to be at and what I needed to be posting.
Yeah.
So one of the key things was and it was something around, not you're focusing too much on the product or whatever. It was something along those lines.
Yeah.
And it made me realize, yeah, I need to do, and I'd heard it before, but it sort of helped it even from the Vaulting Ambitions program. Don't be all about the selling, be about the
Yeah.
story, the storytelling. What's
Yes.
who are you? What are you trying to do? Who are your people? How do you celebrate their successes with working with you, and so forth? And then the
Mm,
product selling should actually only really be about 30%. So
mm.
Tell Stories did this like a digital storytelling workshop, which was fantastic. And she talked about, yeah, tell the story, then do the sale or the call to
Mm,
action, but don't do just sell, because you'll lose people. Yeah.
yeah. I really love that. And because I'm such a big proponent of the soft sell, so
Mm,
how can I give value and talk about a topic, and
mm.
then the link to buy is somewhere on the page there. And if you happen to stumble across it, I do actually love that, because it helps people, really connect with what it is you're doing, really connect with the story, and then go on their own journey of wanting to find out more and wanting to buy into something that you're doing. So I do love that. I think don't get me wrong, I think it's hard sometimes to figure out what your story is and to show up
Yeah,
and tell your story, but I think you're spot on when you can articulate, why you're doing what you're doing, or, the journey or the education for the customer, depending on what field you're in. It
that's
is
right.
really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. And it builds loyalty.
Mm,
Because and people want to see themselves or their friends online, or they want to see people like them
yeah.
as well in
Yeah.
your feed. So really celebrating, I really share a lot of photos of my community in my feed as well. Like whenever I have a
Mhm.
class, their photos are up there.
Yeah.
Um, I think the other key thing was around really backing myself in terms of my product and my value and my pricing.
Mhm.
So it was very scary to put up my prices mid-year, but really being firm on what it is that I'm offering, and being
Mhm.
clear about my terms and conditions. And I didn't get pushback. Like, people went along with me and said, "Yep, yep, no, I'm happy to do that." So
It's
um,
funny. I think sometimes we build up the stuff in our heads more. Like we build up all of the, oh my God, they're gonna say this, they're gonna hate me, they're gonna leave the business. Oh my God, oh my God. And then it's like, no, they're like, whoa, we thought we were paying too little for all this time. It's like, oh damn it. So it
That's
is
it.
interesting, I think, sometimes when we're embarking on something new or we're putting up our prices or we're doing anything where we are, I guess, impacting our community,
Mm,
sometimes it can be a bit scary. But I
mm.
love what you said around just backing yourself and knowing your value.
Yeah, that's right.
So
So
good. No, it's incredible. So, talk to me about the journey from employee to business owner. So, obviously, being employed as a teacher, employed as a consultant, you've got a little, well, some say stability, but it's different dynamic.
yeah.
Moving to business owner, what have been some of the challenges for you around, yeah, business ownership versus employee?
Mm. So I think first of all, I think you'd have quite a few teachers or former teachers in your community or people, and teachers have an amazing skill set. Like we
Mm,
are, we're not just educators, we're counselors, we're HR, people, we're
yeah,
stakeholder
wow.
managers, we're, content producers, we're communicators, we're marketers. There's so much about, and it is quite autonomous. Like, yes, there is a lot of influence and a lot of input from leadership. And if you are in a school that doesn't have good leadership, you really feel it on the ground. Um,
Mm,
but your classroom, your manager of that classroom. So I think I took a lot from that experience and from my experience working in consultancy, and I'd learned a lot through. I'd worked in an agile methodology. I'd worked in various other kind of settings, and I really loved the freedom to take what worked for me and plug it in. As I said, I went a little bit too free
yep.
for a and then I had to, like, okay, let's put some strategies and some organization in place. Um,
Mm,
and that idea of a self meeting, of sitting down and going, right, so where are we at this week? What are the goals? Let's look at the calendar and analyze, what the color mix is there enough of this, that, and the other, or do I need to sort of recalibrate what my week should look like? So yeah, I really enjoy that side of it. And yeah, it hasn't been as much of a crazy shift. Just that little wobble where I went, I can do anything. Okay,
I
let's
love
get
it.
back into line.
Oh, it's so good. No, and it is so good. I love, so many skills are transferable when we're moving from, corporate to business. I love that. I do agree with you. I do think we all tend to go a little bit wild in the beginning, but if you kind of reflect on all of the things that you've learned over the years, you're so right. Like they're so applicable in business.
Mm, mm,
It's a nice way to kind of shortcut success. You don't have to start from nothing. You
that's
do
right.
have however many years of experience.
Exactly, and I think, Danielle, that's why I found it quite, frustrating. A lot of the discussion around these grants, like the Women in Business grant that
Mm,
the Family and Small Business brought in, and there's other local grants, that really were like, "Oh, we want women to, like, succeed, so we're gonna give them heaps of mentoring and heaps of, like, training workshops and so forth." And the
mm,
thing is, I think to me, it sounded a little bit condescending and didn't recognize the huge backpack of skills and experiences that women, especially when they're transitioning from employee
yeah.
a small business owner or solopreneur, whatever, that they carry with them. And
Mm.
it's really, they actually just need capital. So that's why I think this Spark grant is fantastic, because you're one of the few that are recognizing that implementation money is key, because you can have these great ideas and think, you can look at your calendar and go, yes, I could outsource my marketing to someone, but then who's paying that? How are you funding that, like,
Oh
transition?
my God. I love it so much because this is literally the rant that started
Yeah.
it all. You know, this is literally, I totally agree because I've applied for so many grants
Mm,
on the scrunch side
mm,
over the last decade. And, it was just, it was so soul destroying because it was
Mhm.
just, yeah, mentoring, or, you've got to spend the money on an external consultant, or I wasn't innovative enough, or I wasn't female enough because I had male investor. Like it was just so, or you didn't live in the right state. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
People say the words that they
Mm.
want to support women in business, but their actions and the criteria don't support that. It drives
Yeah.
me.
Very frustrating. So I think there needs to be a switcheroo or like a again, like I love this word, recalibration to
Yes.
to, okay, yes, there are women who need training or support to
Mm,
and like a coach to sort of unpack the things that they have brought with them from other businesses or other workplaces, or even to sort of reset where they're going in the future or what strategies they're going to apply. But
yeah.
there's plenty of that out in the marketplace. And in fact, there are other women who are trying to make that their business. And
Yeah.
if we could put money in their pockets. You
Actually. Oh my God.
know?
I love it so much. It's so true. And it's something that, I was getting really frustrated with the, just people offering mentoring and what have you. But I probably hadn't connected it with the fact that women already have so many amazing skills. I just think that's such a good thing to put a pin in, that we
Mhm.
underestimate the value that we bring to a business, and we underestimate the value of the corporate career beforehand, or being a mom and, having to friggin' manage that all day. Like the skills women have and the lens that they can bring to business is just incredible. And yeah, if we can get more money in the hands of women, it will not be a bad thing.
I agree. I agree.
Oh my God. Well, we could talk all
I
day,
couldn't-
Prue, but let's leave the Spark community with one last piece of advice. So I
Okay.
always like to ask our Spark guests. So if you could reflect on your time in business
Mm.
and give one piece of advice to another woman in business to help her on her journey, what would it be?
It would be to trust your gut and back yourself.
Oh,
Number one thing.
I love it. I think you are so right. Yeah, just do it. Just get in
Do it.
there. You've
That's
got
the best
it.
that could happen.
Totally. Like you said, you just go back to find another job, or you do another side hustle, or do something. But like, oh my God, I love that as a piece of advice to end on. It's such a nice, inspiring thing for the end of the year or the start of the year, depending on when everyone's listening to this. But like, just if you've got a little inkling that you could do something, get out there and back yourself. That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me, Danielle. It's been so nice chatting. And you're
You
right,
are
we
the
could
best.
keep going.
No,
But
you are
yeah.
the best, Prue. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with the Spark community. You are incredible.
Thanks so much.